Sometimes you just have unfinished business, and that's what I've got today. A little bit of the leftovers from just talking last week. My name is Phil, and you're listening to The Lip. Yeah, some leftovers from last week. Leftovers are good, usually the next day, but considering that this is a podcast and I had some unfinished things that I wanted to say, it just seems like the best thing to do is keep them while they're still fresh in my mind and go right to it the next week. No need in going into something that I would have to evaluate other stuff because the longer I let some of this stuff linger, the longer it becomes not necessarily outdated, but not as fresh in my mind and things that I absolutely wanted to talk about. And so, this episode, I can honestly say that I was going to talk a little bit about Madden last week, but it's more appropriate this week because it just came out. Makes more sense. I did want to touch on SummerSlam just a little bit because I just love wrestling and SummerSlam was a pretty good show. So I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I will just touch on a few of the things that just made me really, really happy about SummerSlam. I will also go into something a little bit new that popped in my head because it just happened. And things that just happen are usually better for what this type of Just Talking episode is about. And so I will be going into a couple of new things that happened just this week. And I find that always fun to do. But as we're talking right now, I should let you know that the piece of original art that you're looking at right now is called Strange Road. Once again, it's a one of my works and it's a one of one. And once somehow, some way I figure out how I want to market these things and sell them, this will be another one that will be up for sale. Now, clearly and truthfully, I'm excited about this show because one of the things really kind of just burns me a little bit. And I can't wait to dig into it because I can simply only explain how this makes me feel by simply saying the word why. Why? It's the only word that I can use to describe the way I feel about this subject. Why? And soon you will know what that subject is. However, I can't justify or expect you to be able to understand the why. But maybe you do. Maybe it's just a me thing and I just can't quite get over it. So, we'll be talking about that momentarily. But first, it's time to fill in the blank. Okay, to fill in the blank, it goes back to my original question. And this original question of why? Why? It's going to literally lead right into the main event. Probably going to be the first thing I'm going to talk about because this question just seems to be year in and year out something that is kind of a hot button in my mind because we just, I think we're doing too much too quick. And so my question is for this fill in the blank, why on August 17th, as I record this, yes, I am recording this the day of release. This is one of the first, I think. So, why is it that Reese's decided to release the peanut butter cup jack-o'-lanterns early August when it's specifically for Halloween? My answer to that is, well, they just want the extra money. Again, the question, why does Reese's release the jack-o'-lanterns, which is the Halloween candy version of the peanut butter cup, in August? Because they wanted to just make the extra money. On that note, I'm going to ring the bell and begin the main event with the round running. And that's what I want to start with. It's insanity to me. It turned out that probably sometime around June, if memory serves me correct, I went into a Wawa and I saw Reese's had begun to promote their stuff for the Olympics, like everybody does. There's been plenty of cereal boxes and all manner of other things that are Olympic in scope. And so Reese's decided to make a peanut butter medal, peanut butter cup medal, the same type that they would use for when they make the footballs, the eggs, the jack lanterns. But they just made it in the shape of a medal because of the Olympics. It makes all the sense in the world. Now, the Olympic Games didn't start until August, and here they are. I believe it was, like I said, I believe it was late June, early July that these medals were out and available for sale. So they could make sure that people were buying them, get themselves hyped up for the Olympics by getting yourself a peanut butter medal. It's a great thing. I'm not going to lie. I brought several of them and loved every second of it. Just enjoyed them to no end. I I appreciate the metal design. It was good. A high peanut butter ratio. You can't go wrong with that, right? Right. Can't go wrong. However, the Olympic Games were still underway, and here it comes. I go into the same Wawa. They still had the Olympic medals, but they also now had the jack o' lanterns, which are the Halloween candy. Halloween is literally the last day of October. When I saw them, it was maybe 2, 3 days into August. We're talking months here. Now, I can understand if it came out in September. Sure, give yourself 2 months to sell them things, but three? What? You want this out in August? In August? In August? Why? What is the reason for that? Why? I understand you want to make as much money as possible. Anybody in business would want to do it. But it just seems as if you're pushing past where you are. The only way I can explain it is, and I thought about it wholeheartedly, it's literally like these people didn't listen to Yoda when he was training, when he was beginning to train Luke before he got to do so in episode 5 of Star Wars. I'm going to paraphrase Yoda a little bit. What he said was, like I said, paraphrasing here, I've watched this one for a long time. Always his mind in the horizon, never on where he was, what he was doing. That's the key. Never on where he was, what he was doing. So, Reese's, is your mind not where you are? Not what you're doing? Well, clearly, it's on what you're doing because you're trying to push these things a little bit more. But the where you are part, you're in summer. You're at the end, you're at the dog days of summer, and you decided that it was a good idea to go ahead and push a middle fall item right here, right now. It just seems too early. That's my opinion. Personally, I'm not going to lie to you. My favorite of these peanut butter cup Reese's things has always been the eggs. And I've always found them better than the other ones. Just seemed like they were just personally better to me. Now, if you were and they were an Easter thing, so they were going to come out in spring. If you're going to tell me that they're going to make those peanut butter eggs in January, I'm not going to argue. I love those things. Although my perspective is skewed just by the fact that I really like them, even though I still have in the back of my mind, it's kind of forbidden fruit. Seems like it's a little early, right? It's like that that piece of fruit's not quite ripe. It's still a little green on the tree. Maybe it needs to sit there a little bit longer. But I don't know. I don't know. It just seems weird to me why they would do something like that. But it certainly must feel good to for them to see the profits pile up when people go and buy them. Because as long as it's a Reese's peanut butter item, people will in fact buy it, regardless of what it is. Don't make any difference at all. So, more power to you. And on that same subject, Reese's, if you're listening, I wouldn't mind if you decided to put the peanut butter eggs out now too. Although football season is coming up and you have those peanut butter footballs, which are literally just the eggs with the little football pattern in the back. So I'm going to be kind of looking out for those. Whew, that was a lot off my chest. Unusually so, huh? Now I'm going to go into a little bit of wrestling, just a little bit for just a minute, because I know that probably Patrick Houston of Houston's Home Automated. I'm saying it wrong. It's terrible. Also, the guy who has that crazy cool YouTube page, Houston's Hustle Hobbies, and is the owner, operator, and genius behind Zenith Transportation, where he will take you anywhere you need to go, or he will get your stuff anywhere you needed to go. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about wrestling. Just for you, Patrick. Just for you. SummerSlam was August 3rd. So, like I said, I'm just a little bit behind because I didn't quite get to it last week's episode. And I was kind of wanting to get to it that week, and I couldn't do it the week of August 3rd because it was my uncle's birthday, so I didn't want to sort of put the wrestling in there when I was trying to do my uncle's special show. So I left it alone. So I'm going to talk a little bit about it now because it seems like even a few of the other podcasts I listened to, they were just really kind of getting around to it in the last week or so. So here it comes. I think I'm going to start off by saying it was good because it created a sense where there's going to be some more stories that they can tell throughout the time of the rest of this year. They created a situation where they have generated a whole storyline that they're going to be able to maybe use all the way throughout to WrestleMania. And I think that's kind of neat to sort of be able to follow how that's going to play out. If they do it right and they take their time and they're patient with it, they have a couple of stories that they can work with that are going to be able to carry all the way over to WrestleMania in Las Vegas. And that's always exciting. Um, The matches on the card were pretty cool. You had my favorite title. Unfortunately, it's not my favorite physical belt anymore. The Intercontinental Belt. Sami Zayn was the Intercontinental Champion, and I stress was because Braun Breaker, the son of Rick Steiner from the Steiner Brothers, just blew him apart, tore him up, took the Intercontinental Belt. Um, Nia Jax, who won the Queen of the Ring tournament, got a shot to wrestle Bayley for the undisputed women's championship, and she recaptured the title. And I'm actually very happy for Nia Jax because at one point in her early career in wrestling, she had injured a bunch of people, and her character wasn't as good as it could be. But I think now it seems like she's turned a leaf. She's working a lot better than she was before. She really looks like that monster heel that she should be. And you could create some pretty good stories with her, especially since, for some very strange reason, Tiffany Stratton, who has won the Money in the Bank briefcase for the women, just so happens to have befriended the new women's champion. Now, for those of you who don't know what the Money in the Bank briefcase is, it's an item that is used in a specific pay per view that a wrestler can win by climbing a ladder and taking it down from off a high spot. Now, with that briefcase, you are able to cash it in, Money in the Bank, for an opportunity to win a championship of your choosing whenever you want. You can say that you want a title match and they have to grant it to you, or you can interrupt in the middle of a title match with a champion in it, and you can then change that match from a one on one to a triple threat, and you can be part of the match. Or the smart money is you can take that Money in the Bank briefcase after the champion has had a grueling match and cash it in then while you're fresh and you have an opportunity to defeat a tired or beaten up champion. So it seems kind of funny that the lady who has the Money in the Bank briefcase is hanging out with the champion right now. Wonder how that's going to play out, right? But also, a couple other good matches. CM Punk and Drew McIntyre. They had been telling this story ever since CM Punk legitimately got hurt in the Royal Rumble from Drew McIntyre. Just right place, wrong time. Punk literally got hurt, and they were drawing out a story all the way through until they finally had their match at SummerSlam. But the resolution to that match wasn't complete, and I think that there could be some more meat on that bone that they might work on. Speaking of a story, Rhea Ripley, probably one of the best wrestlers in the world, had a match to go get a title that she actually lost due to a legitimate injury. She had to give it up, and her faction, the Judgment Day that she was a part of, kind of turned their back on her and cost her an opportunity to regain the title. And that could very easily be another story that they could tell for a little while and make that sort of branch out and become a little bit more, which is also very, very cool because that story could be really interesting to check out. Back to the Judgment Day, Damian Priest, who sort of kind of folded himself into the Drew McIntyre and CM Punk story. McIntyre at WrestleMania cashed in the money in the got cashed in on after he won the world title against Seth Rollins, and here comes Damian Priest, who was Money in the Bank briefcase holder, and needless to say, CM Punk made sure that Drew McIntyre was beaten up just enough so that Damian Priest could come out and take the title from him. Now, his Judgment Day friends didn't do him any favors at SummerSlam because they turned on him, and that led to another wrestler who I think is probably one of the best wrestlers in the world, Gunther, being able to win the World Heavyweight Championship. That's also really, really neat because Gunther's a good wrestler and he could carry that belt to places where, I'm sorry, Damian Priest probably wasn't going to be able to take it, at least in his first title run. But now he's kind of learned and he might be able to do something if he gets another opportunity. But then I would have to say the biggest match of all at SummerSlam had to be Cody Rhodes, who is literally the new golden boy. He's the guy that the company's running with. And because of that, sip of water real quick. Because of that, um, he defeated Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, which was a very big, big deal. Roman Reigns was champion for 3 years, which was one of the longest title reigns since Hulk Hogan. Nobody had it for more than maybe a year at a time. Prior to that, guys were getting beat in 2, 3 months, couple days. The belts were getting traded around like crazy until Roman Reigns put a stop to it. Now, Roman Reigns had his whole faction, the Bloodline, and after WrestleMania, he took a hiatus, made a movie, did some other stuff, and the Bloodline essentially cast him out. And one of his cousins, Solo Sikoa rather, took his place as the tribal chief. Well, Roman Reigns returned at SummerSlam and made sure that Solo Sikoa got to remember who the tribal chief was. Took him out, Cody wins, defends his title. But the thing that makes it so interesting is, for those of you who don't know, Roman Reigns was a bad guy for the last 3 years. And they hated him, but they loved to boo him. And when he saw him, they started to be a contingency of people who started to be on board with him. And he started getting some cheers, even though he was a bad guy. So when he was off TV and not wrestling after WrestleMania, people started missing him. And it goes to what one of my favorite podcasters, a former really great manager, Jim Cornette, said, and I like to steal his thing a lot when it comes to this. He would say that they can't miss you if you don't go away. And sure enough, Roman Reigns went away, and boy, did everybody miss him. The second he returned, if the amount of people who were screaming for him to come back as soon as his music hit, they've never cheered that loud in Cleveland Browns Stadium for any reason. Sorry, Browns. You're just not gonna make those people rumble like that. But Roman has returned, and that's gonna set up a couple good stories that are gonna lead to WrestleMania, and it won't be long, I imagine, before The Rock comes back too. So we're talking about some serious, serious stuff and some really cool stories that are about to take place in WWE. I think that'll be a lot of fun. Now, I'm going to talk about Madden for a minute. Turns out that Madden came out um, yesterday, as I'm recording this. August 16th, 2024, Madden 25. Now, if there was a game that I would say is my staple game, the one that I would play on a regular basis, it's definitely Madden. It's the one that if I had to play one game and I only had time to play one game, Madden is that game that I would play. A lot of people love playing Madden online, and that's cool. Play against other people. That's a lot of fun. I did it once in a while, but personally, I prefer the franchise mode because that's really a cool situation where you can take your team and you own the franchise. You pretty much put their team together. You can fire coaches. You can even move your team to a different city if you want. But you can control who gets paid, who stays on your team. You move the team around, move players around. It's just a lot of fun for me personally. I enjoy that part of the game. As much as I like playing the game, I really like the front office stuff part of the game when you can essentially sign guys to contracts, develop your players, set up the team in your image. I love that part. Just getting draft picks, evaluating the kids that are coming out from college to the NFL and deciding whether or not they fit your system that you want to try to improve on your team. I love that part. I do. I absolutely do. And so part of the reason why I'm recording this episode day of release is because I was up playing Madden after it came out. And boy, I enjoy it. The coolest part about this year's Madden is, well, I'll get to that. But I think one of the things that I enjoyed was making this Madden a family affair, if it makes any sense. There are plenty of legacy players throughout the NFL, but it's even cooler when the legacy players are from your team. Now, I'm a 49ers fan, and it turns out that there are three players who were just recently drafted or become part of the National Football League this draft who are legacy players to the 49ers. And there's no doubt in my mind that as much as some of the players who were already on the team that were kind of okay, decent, I said, you know what? Mm-mm. I need my legacy players. I want them all in the 49ers. The 49ers in real life got none of these guys. And it puts a bad taste in my mouth a little bit. Because even if they could have just reached out, because a couple of them were later picks, and they could have had a chance to get a couple of these guys. But for some reason, they weren't sold on them, or they thought somebody else was better for it. But to me personally, I think that the business aspect comes into play a little bit too. You've already got a really good team. You've been to the NFC Championship like 4 out of the last 5 years, meaning you've got a good, solid team. Heck, you just came back from losing a Super Bowl. So it's not like your team isn't strong in its core. And I think that for intrigue and added bonus, it would be nice to have had one or two, or in my case, three of these legacy players on your team. Now, I searched the game. I don't know if I did something wrong. Maybe I couldn't find him because I was trying. But he didn't get drafted, so maybe because of that, and he didn't make the team either. He got released. One of the legacy players that I wanted to sign was Tariq Owens, the son of Terrell Owens. Now, he from as far as I can tell, did not make the game, so he was not a legacy player that I was able to seek out. But the 49ers did go after him, which is interesting. They picked him up in a free agent contract, undrafted free agent, so they picked him up for a little bit, but he didn't make the team. Although they said he was looking pretty good for a little while. What are you going to do? It's terrible. But the legacy players that are out there who were drafted that the 49ers did not touch are as followed, and they kind of make sense to me if they could have picked them up. One, the 49ers have an all-time legendary running back who slowly and secretly, some people don't realize this, but Frank Gore is the fourth leading rusher of all time. Not just for the 49ers. Notice how I said that. Of all time. Frank Gore is the fourth leading rusher of all time. He quietly, silently made his way to being the fourth leading rusher of all time. 16,000 yards. There are 3 players in NFL history who have more yards than him. And by saying these 3 players should really make you appreciate how good Frank Gore was in his career. Silently, but greatly. The guys who are above Frank Gore are Barry Sanders, Walter Payton, and Emmitt Smith. That's it. That's it. No Terrell Davis. Not Thurman Thomas. Not Clinton Portis. Not... I can think of 100 other running backs. But it doesn't matter. None of them have more yards than Frank Gore, except for Barry Sanders, Walter Payton, and Emmitt Smith. And it turns out that Frank Gore Jr. was drafted in the NFL. And he did not get picked up by the 49ers. Now, I picked him up because I like the idea of having the son of the fourth all-time rusher on my team. Is he going to start? No. I just want him on the team. And I even gave him his dad's number, so he's got 21. Now, the reason why Frank Gore would not start is because of Christian McCaffrey, who we're going to talk about a little bit more. But it turns out that McCaffrey is a 49er legacy player himself. His dad, Ed McCaffrey, was drafted by the 49ers, and he played there a couple of years before he went to Denver, and then that's where he really got his Super Bowls and starting and did a lot of damage with the Denver Broncos. But of course, the legacy player that, besides Christian McCaffrey, that I want to talk about is a wide receiver, his brother, Luke McCaffrey. Now, to me, it's a no-brainer, knowing that you're going to have to re-sign Christian McCaffrey pretty soon, and you having all this craziness with Brandon Ayuk. Ugh, that still makes me sick. In my opinion, this is just my opinion. If I had a father who was a legacy player, and I'm on a team that he played for, and my brother is playing, he's just got drafted, he's ready to play in the NFL. If I was an owner, knowing that I have a legacy player on my team whose contract is going to be coming up in maybe a year or two, if I remember correctly, and I have a chance to sign his brother to a 4-year, 3-year rookie contract, meaning that the younger brother will be on the team, and the older brother will be on the team. who would have to make a decision on whether or not he wants to resign. I think that might make it a little easier if his brother was there. Just me. Because now, who knows? Who knows if the 49ers win the Super Bowl, which in the next couple of years, I think they probably will win one in the next couple of years. And I mean literally this year or next year. If McCaffrey does in fact win a Super Bowl, what says he doesn't have it in his mind that maybe he wants to play with his brother and then doesn't re-sign and goes and plays with his brother? If you have his brother on your team, the incentive for him to leave to go play with his brother isn't there because they're already on the same spot, and maybe it makes that signing a little bit easier. That's just me thinking, general manager thing. That's just me. But I wouldn't want that not to happen. Then there's the ultimate legacy player who came out in the draft this year. And there's no other words to put it except for the ultimate legacy player. Frank Gore, like I said, is the fourth leading running back rushing of all time. But when you have the GOAT, and literally between Tom Brady and this guy, when you just look at it on paper and say, who is the greatest football player of all time, just not by position, but just period, those two names pop in my mind. Tom Brady, and the other one, the legacy player for the 49ers, Jerry Rice, the greatest wide receiver of all time, whose records are literally nearly impossible to break. They're that good. And you got to consider the couple records that he did have broken, which was yards in a season to Calvin Johnson. The Lions had nobody else to throw the ball to, so you're going to break that record if you're that talented as Calvin Johnson, and there's nobody else really for you to throw to. And then Tom Brady gets his first ever really good wide receiver in Randy Moss, and he breaks the single season touchdown record. But you have to consider this. To me, there's an asterisk on that because when Jerry Rice originally got the record of 22, he did so in a strike shortened season. So there wasn't even a full season when Jerry Rice broke that record. Whereas Randy Moss broke the record by one touchdown in a full season. Let's just let that sink in for a minute. And now you're telling me that his son has a chance to play with your team, and he's already been an ambassador for the 49ers forever. But now you're going to let his son go somewhere else and make it worse, somewhere in California, Los Angeles. He goes to the Chargers. So now your greatest player of all time has his son going to San Diego. Well, not San Diego, excuse me, to the Chargers. They're no longer San Diego, they're LA. So all those big time games when you had Jerry Rice showing up and showing out, you're probably not going to get that as much because the Chargers have a young receiving core who is not really the top of the line yet. And Brendan, he could sneak into that starting spot somehow, some way. And I imagine that his dad would like to watch him play. I'm just saying. So when his dad's going to want to watch him play, he's going to be going to watch a Chargers game. And let's say there's a big 49ers game, Jerry's going to have to pick 49ers or Chargers. I'm sorry, that's that case where blood is thicker than franchise, and I believe he's going to go watch his son play as opposed to sit in that really cool spot that he used to sit in and watch those 49er games. Now, Chargers aren't very good, on paper, and they may not make the playoffs. So maybe Jerry will come and watch the playoffs. But during the regular season, I don't know if we're going to see him. So I would have immediately jumped on that fact and picked up Brendan, which I did on my Madden game, and Luke McCaffrey, and Frank Gore Jr. I also traded Nick Bosa's older brother to my team. Speaking of the Chargers, I went and got Joey Bosa too. So I have a nice whole little family affair going on with my 49ers on Madden. And here it comes. The last thing that I'm going to talk about as far as Madden goes is the Madden curse. And granted, I've wanted a 49er to be on the cover of Madden for 20 years now. And it came close a couple times where they had a tournament to decide who's going to be on the cover of Madden. They had decided between a player from the past and a player from the present. At the time, it was, I guess it was, I can't remember what year it was exactly. 2012, 2011, that's what I can't remember which exactly season it was. But the 49ers had two candidates, one for the past and one for the present, and they did pretty well. It was Patrick Willis for the present at the time and Jerry Rice for the past. And they came pretty close, but neither one of them got in there. Um, there was a push for George Kittle for a little while, and that didn't work out. But now, Christian McCaffrey, after having an Offensive Player of the Year season, he made the cover of Madden. And anybody who knows the Madden curse is a bittersweet thing. Bittersweet. You get to be the face of the game, but it seems like it comes with calamity every time, no matter who you are. Calvin Johnson, the great Calvin Johnson, injured. Like, I could go up and down the list, whoever has been on that cover. Donovan McNabb had an injury during that time. Um, I'm just spitting out a few. Um, that year when they split it and you ended up having Drew Brees, he got hurt. Patrick Mahomes didn't have his best season. He lost the Super Bowl. I mean, it just it's just a crazy, horrible thing. And now Christian McCaffrey is on the cover, and guess what? Christian McCaffrey had a bad calf strain, may not play throughout the preseason, but I'm okay with that. If that's the extent of his Madden curse, that he doesn't get to play during the preseason, when the only thing that can really happen is that players are going to get hurt, I'm cool with that all day long. Don't play in the preseason. I'm alright with it 100%. And I'll say, oops, the Madden curse got us. He can't play in the preseason. But when he's playing in that Super Bowl again and helping the 49ers hoist that Lombardi trophy, well, I'm going to be quite alright with that. And I do believe that I'm going to ring the bell for the main event because I've covered everything that I wanted to cover. Well, there is one slight piece of business. We'll kind of get into that real fast because I'm wondering how it's going to work out. In that all around, I believe it was the floor exercise where Simone Biles ended up getting silver and Chills ended up getting the third because they overturned the Romanians and she ended up getting third. The Olympic Committee did some really dirty, devious, horrible stuff, and they flipped it again. So they went Romania in third place, then no Chills in third place, They waited some 3, 4 days later, and then Chills was then stripped of her bronze, and the Romanian lady picked it back up. Now, my thing is, you've now moved this medal so many times back and forth that I think that at this point, they should just award both women the bronze medal and call it a day. It's like, whoops, we messed up. You both are going to get a bronze because we messed up. I honestly believe that that's how that should be handled. But of course, as far as I can tell, they made it official. The lady from Romania, bronze medal winner, and Miss Chills is going to be fighting it legally in order to see if she can get her medal back. That's going to be an interesting story to keep up with. And on that note, I'm going to ring the bell. And that's the main event. Deep breath, deep breath, deep breath. Because I'm going to talk about the staircases in the jail that I worked at. Now, granted, there are cameras everywhere in the stairs. Before I started working there weren't cameras in the stairwells. And because of the fact that in both parts of the jail that I worked in, there was two staircases, one that went up to a third floor, and then one that went up to a second floor. Now, in each side, they both had these little indents where bad stuff could easily happen. Turns out one of my favorite places to stand during those times when there was mass movements was in that stairwell, because a lot of times the inmates expected that the officers wouldn't want to sit there. Now, I personally did, because it seemed like a good place to be, because they would do all kinds of awful things. Now, if you were an inmate and let's say you had a gambling debt, going down those stairs is not a good place to be, especially since there's a very random approach to how the blocks are released for things like, say, um, exercise yard or medication. Nothing says that some of these guys can't hang in the stairwell and kind of wait for you, or take their sweet time and wait for you. And that's why it seems like it's a really nasty place to be, because it is. Truthfully, the best way to avoid those situations is to move quickly, don't speak, and just get through it. Now, in those stairwells, especially the one in the larger area that had the 3 stories, 3 different levels of blocks, you had 66 stairs. And during those 66 stairs, there was 1, 2, 3, 4. I think there was 6 landings on each of those little spots. Nothing good can happen unless you just keep walking. But if you sit there, all kinds of bad stuff could potentially happen. So, that stairwell is a place where all kinds of stuff can happen. Drugs can be passed, people can get beat up. It's a real bad place to be. And needless to say, the farther up you have to go, the more opportunity for bad stuff to happen to you can exist. So, to make a long story short, those stairs are a really good reason why I would tell everybody out there, don't go to jail. Now, I'm going to start and talk about the spear of the week. Roman Reigns, man, I need you on this one because, again, I I've had this issue at one of these stores that I will not mention where people are trying to get you to switch utility services and you tell them you don't want to be bothered. And then you go and you do what you have to do, and then you come back, and lo and behold, they come and talk to you again. And then you had another issue where you had to go back because somebody forgot something, and you now have to go a third time. And for a third time, these dudes still keep asking you, do you want to talk to them? Now, for me, I get extremely upset with that because I told you once, and you recognized me the second time. And then you clearly thought that it would be a good idea to try a third time. So, if I speared you right through your little display, you shouldn't blame me because you had 3 strikes. And here it comes. Now you're out. Out cold, that is, after you've been speared right through your own little display table and your tablet smashed through your skull. Without a doubt, those solicitors trying to get you to switch things from utility services, man, this is, I think, the second time that they've become the spear of the week. Alright, this episode is coming to a close. I hope that you enjoyed Strange Road, the one-of-one piece of art that is displayed for you as this episode is going off. What can I tell you? It's been a fun episode to sort of close off the gap and get back to finishing the stuff that I wanted to go through and sort of polish off the whole idea of the Just Talking episode that I wanted to do. I think that I really liked talking about this stuff, and like I said, I had too much going on with the Olympics. I didn't realize that I had a lot on my plate that I wanted to talk about with the Olympics. Granted, there is definitely a lot you can talk about in an event that only happens once every 4 years. And for me and my show, this is the first time that I've had a show during the Olympics, and boy, I think I got a little excited about it. So, it's just what I wanted to do. What can I tell you? Check me out on Instagram at Philip Henderson 5102. Um, you will always be able to join the Facebook group, our group, the Lip group. I say it before and I'll say it again until the end of time. There is always room for one more person to join the Lip Facebook group. There's always room for one more. You understand that? Always room for one more. I can promise you that you're listening to this right now. You've already got your opportunity to have seen this YouTube channel that this is on. I can certainly hope that you will like and subscribe to the channel, which of course is at Phil the Lip. Subscribe. and you will see all the rest of the content that I've got going on. And this week, I'm going to definitely put some more out there besides this episode. I've got something that I wanted to show you that I didn't even actually get into, but maybe I'll talk about that next week. But I will be doing a video on it this upcoming week, and then maybe it'll be part of the show later in the week. I just can't explain to you enough how much I am glad that you are all listening, and how much I hope that you continue to. And so I'm prepared to leave you with these words of wisdom. And these go specifically to those guys who are soliciting me to try to change carriers. This is words that they need to hear because, man, it's words that they clearly need to appreciate, because what their job is exactly what these words of wisdom really are. These guys would simply, in the words of the late great Gorilla Monsoon, resemble these remarks. You would try to dry a wet excuse me. You would try to dry a wet desert sand with a hairdryer. You would try to dry wet desert sand with a hairdryer. Now, of course, if the sands of the desert actually do get a little moist from a quick little rainstorm, it's not going to be very long before it just dries up because of the sun. And these guys would be sitting there with a hairdryer actually thinking that they're actually doing something. Can I tell you? That's just what people think sometimes. Well, I just want to let you know that my name is Phil, and you have just listened to The Lit.